pleasure of speaking to Yanni Skiotis. I probably jacked up his last name, and I apologize. This individual is a very interesting person. He is a manic depression survivor. Yeah, I'm looking forward to everybody hearing his story. It's it won't be easy for some people, but I think it would be wonderful, and I think it's something that needs to be heard. How you doing, Yanni?
Good, thank you. And you said my last name absolutely correct. That's a great job you did there. It's a simple Hellenic name that most people butcher, but you said it perfect. And it's really a pleasure being on your show. So I thank you.
So, Yanni, we're talking a little bit, but before we get into your background, can you tell me a little bit about manic depression?
Well, from what I see of it, what I feel of it, and experience from it, it's the extremities. You feel things to extreme degrees. Your highs when you're really feeling good, it's just not a real good feeling. It's an extra real good feeling. You're way out there. And the same thing with your low. You just don't get lower, you get down. You get into the gutter, you get into the subterranean world. So it's that's why it's manic depression. They call it bipolar and different types and all that, but I like the term manic depression because it accentuates the extremities, and that's what you have to deal with. You have to deal with, okay, how can I survive the extremities? I can survive a normal day, so to speak, but what way out if my emotions go way out on the limb one way or another? How do I deal with that? How do I survive that? How do I make sure I don't succumb to it?
So, how did you realize, or what was it signs to you that you had manic depression?
Well, I really didn't know until my brother, he had me sent to a doctor. They can only help me for 1 week because of no insurance. Then I went to the state place because I had no insurance. And when I was hearing voices, obviously I knew something was wrong. And that's when, I really, because I couldn't make decisions. That's another point of the manic depression. You can't make decisions. Your mind gets like paralyzed. You freeze to where you can't, you know, take the left side or the right side of an issue of decision making, and you kind of freeze. So that's what I knew happened to me. And the point of no return is when you're hearing voices.
When you started hearing these voices, did it scare you at all? Like, was it very alarming? Did you feel like you were losing control?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, I didn't know what was happening to me, and when you have no experience at something, you panic a little bit. It's just like if you don't know how to swim and you're thrown into deep water and there's nobody there to help you, you're going to panic.
Hmm.
So I didn't know, and those voices you're hearing aren't good. It's not like they're positive voices. For the overwhelming majority of the time, even when I almost went back into a severe case, the voices are negative because that manic depression wants you to succumb. It wants to overcome you. It wants to conquer you. And that's why those voices you hear, from, at least for me, the great majority of the time, they were negative.
Was it just very negative self doubt, like breaking you down? Was it telling you to harm yourself?
All the above, all the above, and all the demeaning things like you're worthless, you're a loser, you're a failure. And it's very difficult to try to get through that because you don't have um, a fundamental base to deal with it. You don't have the weapons, you don't have the tools to deal with it. So you're listening to them, you're hearing them, and you have no way out of it. So you're just hoping that it stops, and sometimes it didn't. It just harps on you. It'd be like, have you seen that movie, The Hurricane, with um, Denzel Washington played Reuben Carter,
I
and a
don't
former
remember it.
boxer? And, Hurricane is a great movie based on a true story of Reuben Carter, a boxer. There's a scene in there where he's in solitary confinement and he's hearing voices. And they show another guy, it's him, another version of him who's speaking negativity to him. And that's how it is. That scene really impacted me because that's how it is. You're hearing voices. You have another person in your head, not renting space in your head, but he owns that space in your head. And he talks whenever he wants to talk. And he's going to talk negative to you. And that's what that scene reminded me. I like that kind of a chuckle at it the first time. I said, "Oh, I've been there. I've seen that movie. I've been there, buddy, more than one night." So, you get attacked like that. And when I succumbed nearly the second time, many, many years later, I'd wake up in a cold sweat sometimes when I thought of those, I'm not going back, and and the threats of what can happen. And because like that girl told me, you think it was rough this time, come back. And so you get you fight that fear.
So, for the audience that's listening, and then also the people I will be listening to after I publish it, um, tell the audience about what she meant about you coming back.
Yeah, when you go in the first time,
Where you
you're
go
new
and
to
where,
it.
sir?
Pardon me?
Where you go and where, sir? So, because they don't know the backstory, I do, but the people would
Oh,
not know.
well, going back to the mental institution, especially a state place, you don't want to return there. So if the first time you go, you want to try to brace yourself, be able to fix yourself so you can return to normal living. But if you go back to that state place, that's what she meant. It gets so much more worse for you because now you feel deeper in that bottomless pit for the first time. And all that negativity is going to compound worse than all the drugs you're taking in there.
Hmm. Some of the people have actually heard. I went to a 13-week residential, and the psychologist really wanted to help me out with my post-traumatic stress. And I've seen a few people go in and out of this residential, and they went back to it. And it's almost like some people are defeated when they come back, and they're like, "Well, I'm back here again. I screwed up here again." What are some of the valuable lessons that you learned while you were in there?
Well, I've seen others that were suffering a lot worse than me. So I knew that, okay, I've got it pretty bad, but there's people in here that have been here a lot longer than me that, they're going to become wards of the state. They're not getting out, you know? And even if they did, they're coming right back because they can't function in society. Plus, the way those drugs just beat down your body, they just beat you up. It's like having a ball bat and you're the heavy bag and they're just beating on you with that ball bat. And you just get beat up by these drugs and the side effects of those drugs. And I told myself, and I told my brother when I left, I said, I'm never coming back here. They're going to have to carry me on a shield dead. This is not going to happen again. So I willed myself right there because I remembered all that hell. And there's some other people I could tell you stories about them I was in there with. God, I'm so thankful that God didn't let me suffer to the degree that those people suffered. So for me, it was a matter of the will. And when that girl told me, you think it's bad this time, wait if you have to come back. And I seen those people who come back. So her words resonated with me because I seen what she meant by her statement. Hearing a statement is one thing, seeing it in action is another. And you're right. You're right, William. If you got to come back a second time, you're coming back defeated. You're not coming back because it's your first time in and you're down and you're going to try to figure out how to get out of here. You're coming back and you're defeated and you're hopeless. And that's what she meant. It's going to be a lot worse the second time. And I've seen people come back more than twice. They're back, they're in and out, they're back. It's like, wow, they're not getting out of here. Probably because of the state, they have to let you out for a little bit, and then they figure you're wandering around and rein you back in. Because I'm sure the state has some kind of limits on how long they can hold you. I don't know the legalities of it, but how do these people keep coming back? And I just said, no, that's not going to be me.
Hmm. It's hard. It's hard when you actually go in there the first time. It's hard to actually to take in the information that this is happening to me or this is going to be part of me for the rest of my life, and to even talk about it and learning about what are some of my situations and how is this going to look like when I'm interacting and making new relationships.
Right. Yeah, that especially in my era, because I'm 72 in January. So in 79, I was 25 years old when I came down with an illness. But what I also later found out, I have nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't commit a crime. I contracted an illness. But back in that day, in the era that I was stricken with it, it was thrown underneath the carpet. You don't talk, oh, don't talk about it, don't talk about it. I would talk about it from time to time. And I'd have relatives say, oh, you shouldn't talk about that. I said, why the hell not? I contracted an illness. I didn't commit a crime. I mean, God bless the cancer survivors. They gladly talk about it. I can't talk about it. And I've got something that's actually more deadly. Okay. Then you look at the number of people that go in these institutions and they're not the same. A lot, over 1/3 of America alone, we're not talking the world, alone suffers from some form of depression. At least 1/3. That's one out of every three. So me, you, and put someone else out here, William, one of us is suffering from manic depression or some form of depression. That's greater than any cancer rate. I'll tell you that
Hmm.
right now. So, God bless the survivors of cancer because they are heroes. And I feel bad for those who've died. We've all lost loved ones or friends from that heinous disease. But what about the mental illness people who survive? They're not looked upon as heroes, or they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy's crazy. No, he's not crazy. I'm saying he got the papers to prove it. Can you prove your sanity? I proved mine. I proved mine in the course of 2 years. So I throw it right back at him. And that's what you need to do. You need to fight. Because the minute you give up, wow, that tidal wave's coming, that tsunami's coming. And the less you fight, the harder it is for you. Because now you got to fight through that tsunami, that tidal wave that hits you. You see what I'm saying? It compounds. So any negativity, one of my 6 points is from the Bible. If you want me to talk about it, or do you want to ask me another question? I don't know.
No, I would like you to go into that, but the thing and the reason I'm actually bringing this up is like the reason this whole channel is actually existing is because you just talked about a physical thing where people can be able to measure it really easily about like how the cancer spread into their body, how it's impacting the organs, how it's impacting the lungs. And with mental health, I hate to say, but it's actually very taboo. And
Yeah, yeah,
when we actually start talking about it, where we can name it, where we can be able to start processing it, where we can start meeting a person with love, when we can start actually pushing this out, like, well, I know I'm going to have anxiety attacks. I know I'm going to have bouts of depression. Hey, I'm going to be doing my best job about managing it. This is part of me for the rest of my life. I can't
right.
just cut it out. I can't use radiation. But what I can do is the best job that I can. And when we think about mental health, instead of, because this is my issue with how they probably put mental health into a medical model. Medical models, they're able to do very pathology route and be able to fix it. With mental health models, it's it's very reoccurring. It doesn't mean it's just one and done. And now this is why I think it's important to even have this type of conversation.
Yeah, because you're right. Because so much of mental health illness for the person suffering from it is internal. Because the illness is in the mind, in the thought process. It's not in the body. It can be in the body because there's many studies saying, hey, this will affect your organs. You can get diseases because of all the negativity in your system. That happens. Okay, but to talk about it is very therapeutic, very helpful because you realize, hey, I'm not alone. And that was one of the advantages I had of being in there. I seen people suffering a lot worse than me. But yet, what also inspired me was they still had their faculties about them. Like there's this one guy named Denny in there. He was in there for about 10 years. So he says, okay. And he was taking Haldol and Thorazine together. Yeah, try that cocktail sometime. You want to be laid out, you'll go dead out with those. They used to give Thorazine to fighters back in the 50s when the mob was fixing fights. They'd put the Thorazine in the water bottle, and the fighter take a drink or sip, whatever. He comes out like a zombie and he gets knocked out in the first round or so. This guy was taking this 4 times a day. Because in there, you're going to take your drugs. You're going to take them 4 times a day, every day. You don't get Sundays off. There ain't no going to church in there. You're taking your drugs. And I got a scar up here. One time I didn't want to take my drugs, and a security guard beat on me, put me in restraints, and they shot it in you. And I was not as bad off as a lot of people like Denny. He was taking these together, but you know what? He used to be in the computer field too, as I was. At that time when I went in there, I knew something about computers because I had degrees in it. And, he remembered, check this out. The guy was in there for 10 years and he remembered the operating commands to run computer jobs. Those are sophisticated commands. And he had the order right. So that told me, I said, whoa, wait a minute. This guy is taking drugs way more heinous than I ever thought of taking. And yet he can still function. He can still remember computer operating commands. That gave me hope. And hope is a dangerous 4-letter word. Okay. But when you have some hope like that, you realize, hey man, I might be able to whip this thing. I might be able to lick it. So he was an inspiration to me in there as well. And then on the other side, you realize how things can get bad. There's another kid in there named Dale, and he heard voices 24/7. He talked at his voice he's hearing. The voice's name was Bobby. Dale was the man's name, and the voice he's hearing was a guy named Bobby. No, Bobby, I'm not doing that, Bobby. No, Bobby, get away from me. All day long, every day. And I'm saying, oh my God, this can get really bad. So, I was living both sides of that teeter-totter. I was living both sides of that spectrum, where one's kind of an inspiration and the other is, scary. Man, that could be you. Now, to show you how powerful these drugs were, I was on a drug called Mellaril. At the time, a friend of mine visited me, high school friend, and he was a drug pusher in the day, and he took every drug, and I mean every drug, from heroin to marijuana, and he survived them. And his name was Scotty, and he was a hell of a guy. And I slipped him a pill of the Mellaril I was taking, which was banned in 2005 because it causes heart arrhythmia, which I was able to get over. Some people don't, and they die of AFib. But anyway, I slipped a pill to Scotty. He contacted me the next day. He said, what in the hell are they giving you? He said, man, that knocked me out for a full day. I couldn't get up for a full day. I laughed. I said, I take that 4 times a day, brother. And you ain't seen nothing yet. You think Melloril's bad. Put some Thorazine or Haldol up your ass. You'll feel bad. You'll see bad. So he said, oh my God, you got to get out of there, man. See, that's the thing, is those drugs. And when you're misdiagnosed like I was for 2 years, misdiagnosed, fed every wrong drug in the world. I don't remember all the drugs I've taken. I remember Mellaril because it caused a heart arrhythmia. I don't remember the other ones. I can't even tell you their names. But they keep switching them up, and just, so it's like, going to a dice table. Okay, roll the dice again. That one didn't work. Try something else. So, those guys it's amateur hour in there. And they're playing games with your mind. And see, that's the whole thing about the mental illness. You don't know much about the mind.
Hmm.
I don't care what these doctors say, how many great theories they got, and God bless them and all that stuff. I got news for them. At the most, 20% of your mind is known. 20% at the most. That's being generous. Okay. That means for 80%, let's say a house is 1,500 square feet. Okay. You're entering a house, 1,300 square feet is total pitch blackness. You don't know where you're at in that house. You're a blind man with a blindfold trying to find the light switch. That's how little is known about the mind. So now you're going to take drugs and luckily get cured? Think about that. 20%. Vegas gives you better odds than 20% if you bet on the line in the craps table. You can do better than 20%. Are you kidding me? So that's the monumental odds that these doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists is going to talk to you, psychiatrist is going to feed you drugs. So they can come up with all these theories they want. They don't know about the mind. That's like a heart surgeon working on you. He only knows 20% of your heart, but he's going to do surgery on your heart. You going to let him do that? You let him pop you open? See that they don't use it as an analogy like that. But that's what all people with mental health are fighting. They're fighting the unknown. And so you have to find something that works for you. And that's why for me, my 6-point method that I, come up with over time and experiment works for me. And I ran it by some other people that works for them or parts of it. So, you have to have, a boxer wears gloves. He wraps his hands. He does training. Same with a baseball player. He's in the batting cage. He sees the pitches coming at him fast. They got spring training. So athletes go through different training to prepare themselves for the game. Mental health is no different. You have to have an arsenal to fight back. Otherwise, you're gonna get killed, literally, because you have no defense. And that's what happened to me the time I was in there. I didn't know what in the hell was happening to me. I mean, it got so bad. I had 2 college degrees at the time I went in there. My dad lived a colorful life. He had a popcorn wagon. He rented gambling halls in the 20s. The movie The Sting begins in Joliet. My old dad was the kingpin back then. But anyway, they had an article my brother brought me of my father. It was only 3 sentences. And that's how his popcorn wagon, before he got into the speakeasies, his popcorn wagon caught on fire. William, I could not read 3 sentences. That's how far my mind was going. I cannot read 3 sentences. What does that tell you? I had 2 college degrees. So that's how far this can attack your mind. And that's scary. And I had to hand it back to my brother. I said, I can't read this. Can you read it to me? That's sad. And believe me, the drugs played a part in it too. Because those drugs and those side effects can kick in at any time, just like manic depression. You could be going along the road feeling fine, feeling great, and bam, you get hit with a negative episode. What are you going to do? It's on now. What are you going to do? And that's why one of my techniques comes from the Bible. When Christ was going to face the crucifixion, St. Peter told him not to go through with it. And you know what Christ told St. Peter?
What did he tell him?
He said, Pisimo, Satana, which translates from the Hellenic to English, away from me, Satan. Not that Peter was Satan, but his words were satanic. Because without the crucifixion, there's no resurrection. And without a resurrection, there's no Zoe, no eternal life. So he had to go through with it. So to me, when I get blindsided like that, and I'm feeling good or even whatever, I get hit with a lot of negativity and I get into a negative mood, I take my index fingers, I push them out, and I say, Pisimo Satana, meaning I want these negative thoughts away from me because they're satanic. And if you allow them to fester, it's going to be like a cancer. So that's another weapon I have to right away attack. Bam! As soon as that hits, bam! I'm on it, and it can happen anyway. I remember one coworker, I did that to myself, and he said, "Yanni, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, never mind. Just an old thing." And then we went on about our business. But that's what I mean, William. You have to have weapons to attack this with. And for some people, talking to a psychologist works. For others, taking drugs from a psychiatrist works. From others, like look at Tina Turner in that movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? She got into Buddhist chanting. All the hell she went through, her husband beating her like that, and all the negativity in her life she went through, that was her remedy to deal with the downside of life and that. So you need to have something to work with. Otherwise, fighting mental illness alone with no weapons, man, you're in a small rowboat in the middle of a raging sea. You're gonna sink. You're going down.
The thing I will say about the mental health, it's definitely evolved quite a bit, and it's also stayed the same in the same breath, I'll say. Like, they have actually started looking at different avenues to treat people. For me, it was like doing cognitive processing therapy and helping me be able to go through some of the bouts that I was going through. And then also in the same breath, it hasn't changed much, because some people say it's snake oil salesman. They have these old thoughts, they're repackaging them in new perspectives. But I do agree with what you're saying when you're saying that there's not one right way for everybody. There's different ways to be able to treat it. Like, you got people that believe in faith. Christianity helps them out. Buddhism. Some people turn to their friends, their animals. You probably have seen the horse therapy, the equine, or dogs. And I do agree with that, where by also talking about it, by being able to name it, and also trying new things, is the way that we could be able to handle our own depression or whatever is actually plagues us.
Oh, completely right. And see, the whole main issue that they can't solve to this day, and I've read some articles on it, nobody really knows how the brain processes. Oh, they know the cognitive area, they know these different areas and blah, 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 but they don't know how the brain actually processes information. They don't know that. So that's the main reason why you have a brain. So if you don't know that, like, the heart is the main thing of your body, right? You don't have a heart. You can forget about the lungs and the feet and arms, the rest of it. It doesn't matter. Same thing with that. If you don't know how that mind processes, you really can't cure it. And to me, all these are symptoms. And they work. There's ways to attack the symptoms. Like, for me, I have my common sense and faith-based six-point method. But I don't know how mental illness enters my mind, because if I did, I'd be able to kill it and get it over with. But I don't. And neither is any doctors. If they knew, they would give me the magical drug or whatever, and it's over with. But no one knows. Just like, they have shots to cure malaria or whatever, and these different illnesses, but they don't have one for mental illness, because it's too unwieldy. There's too much out there, too many different factors and degrees. There's too many ways that it can attack you. And since you don't even know how the brain processes, you know the different compartments, but you do not know how that processes information. See, that's the key unknown. Once they unlock that, which they won't, but once they unlock that, then you could find out, okay, here's what's going on. This is the chief culprit right here. We understand how he's going from A to B. We don't know that. We just say, oh, this out here, that out there, take this, talk to this guy, do this therapy, do that therapy. And it's all fine. But at the end of the day, you're not cured, are you? Because they haven't figured out the cure.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's one thing I learned outside of the mental illness. When I studied a little bit about it, I figured, wait a minute, because I used to be a computer programmer. for 20 years. And you figure out the root of the problem and you figure out how to process things. Okay, that's the whole thing. It's input, processing, output. So how you process it's the key function of computer programming. And you have tools to work with, the languages and the other accessories to the language. But anyway, I learned that, hey, no one knows this answer. So you have to find something that works for you. And again, whatever gets you through the day, like if I get attacked driving down the road like that, boom, satana, pisamu satana. First thing I do in the morning, another one of the 6 points. I wake up and I put my feet on the ground, and I prayerful, thankful, hopeful. So I want to give, prayerful, grateful, hopeful. I want to give all thanks to God because I lived awake another day. So right away, as soon as you get up, bam, positivity. I do my daily prayers, positivity. Okay. And then what I learned from a priest, he put on his card, I have it to this day. No human condition is ever permanent. Therefore, he will not be too overjoyed in times of good fortune, nor too sorrowful in times of misfortune. That gives you balance. Okay. And so you go through these different things. You get your rest, you eat right, and you listen to your body. You learn how to listen to your body. And, you manage to use these tools to get through the day. If you get attacked, some days you don't get attacked and you're fine. You might go through a period of days. But like that girl told me in that institution, you're never cured. You're going to get attacked. So how do you prepare for it? That's the whole thing to me with mental illness is you have to have a plan that works for you. And that's kind of also the beauty of all these different studies by different doctors and therapists and what have you, whatever they call themselves, is because they're finding out different ways to help people. It may not be a cure-all, but it helps this group of people or helps that group of people or helps people with these symptoms. So that's the beauty of mental health research, and it's much more advanced than ever before. There's no one cure, but guess what? Every day they're finding out different ways to attack it. And that's great because so many people suffer undeservedly. So to me, I have, when I hear about somebody suffering or I read about people committing suicide and stuff like that, oh man, that hurts me because I've been there. I've been in the gutter, the sewer of this illness. Because a state place, believe me, you do not want to be in a state place. That's why I'm a big advocate for national health care. Now this issue going on in the politics about taking away health care for millions of people, that's sick. That's sick. I don't wish evil upon nobody, but if those people that want to strip health care, if they had to spend 1 week in a state institution and take these drugs, that's going to drive you insane. Just 1 week, believe me, they say, hey, you know what? We need national health care. But they won't. They'll never see that side. And that's the real tragedy of it. And all that this country has, all the wealth that this country has, you could slice out part of this military budget and put it into mental health, and you can cure a lot of things. I work for the Department of Corrections as one of my computer analyst jobs. When they had the 3 strikes law in California, 3 strikes and you're out, 25 to life mandated by the judge, he had no way out. We were building a new system because the old system couldn't handle the 3 strikes law for the computer offender-based information system. So we were writing a complete new system of programs. And I see all these cases, because we had the test region where we brought in the production data, and I'd be reading up on these cases. And William, these people were 25 to life for stealing food out of a Circle K, a convenience store. Are you kidding me? Because the lawyers made everything a damn felony. So at times I would cry because I knew the answer was mental health, not incarceration, and all the hell they're going to catch him there. That was sad. And yet, ironically, the man that started that, Reagan, he died of a mental illness, which I wish upon nobody. But it's almost like poetic justice. It's almost like, hey, be careful what you wish for. So, the prison population exploded. The prisons in California went nuts because they cut from health to prisons. That's how I got the job. And it's sad that this nation, as great as it is, I mean, Canada has a national health program. Europe has one. Why can't we? We're greater than either one of either of those continents or the countries. We're greater than either of them. And yet here we are bitching about watching millions of them go off with no health care. And people are going to die and people are going to suffer. And it's going to be horrific unless they figure out somehow to keep people's health care.
I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about how mental health it creates like crime, it creates substance abuse, and it creates all these other negative outcomes. And people being incarcerated and spending life for stealing, it sucks. And
Yeah.
it's these blanket rules and these pens that people provide, and they go and they just move it through. So I was asking a buddy of mine, and he's a clinical psychologist, and I said, do we go from the top down approach? Do we go from the bottom up approach, or do we go from the hamburger approach, where we go start in the middle and work our way out? And when we start talking about mental health, and we start talking about major depressive, post-traumatic stress, schizophrenia, all these areas of our life, and we start actually talking about it, and people start to understand and humanizing what they're going through, we can start to lower crime. We can start putting funds into these areas. But until we start actually talking about this at a higher level and we start making this more of a priority, nobody's going to do anything because they can make money off of this. They can make money off of hand over fist in a bunch of different areas. But the corrections, a lot of these people that are making these problems, they were products of their situation. They usually come from lower social economics. They have historical backgrounds of generational trauma. And it's easy just to demonize them and saying, hey, you're an adult, you should know better. By this time, if you have experienced trauma as a young kid, parts of your mental state has been slowed down. It's been stunted. And it creates all these negative adverse situations. Like a person like yourself, if you are on one of those highs, all of a sudden you start spending the money and then all of a sudden get yourself in debt, that could be a criminal offense. And depending on what year it was, it's horrible. So I believe that this is a discussion and should be heard and it should be talked about so that people can start looking at it from a different perspective.
Oh, 100%. Because until they have those conversations, they're not going to be able to come up with a solution. Because if they just not talk about it and let politicians take things the way they want to take them, they're going to do what's best for them. And that's what's best for the people. And that's the sad thing I seen when I was working for Department of Corrections and watched that, prison population explode. And then you get stuff like that and you get a record and everything's a felony. You can't get work. The recidivism rate's going to go through the roof. And that's exactly what happened. So, they need to do something. And I don't know what the solution is, but I know how I deal with my episodes of manic depression because I was on that high and I went out and spent money and I ended up having to file bankruptcy. So, I've been there. I've been down that road where the high destroys you as much as the low. So that's why I have my little rule, even to this day. If it's $100 or more, not buying it. No matter how much I want it, not buying it. Think about it, make a decision tomorrow. And like some people laugh at that, but I do it as a stopgap measure so I don't get on that high again. I stop the high. So just like you got to stop the low, like Peace and Now, for example, or being, prayerful, grateful, hopeful when your feet hit the ground in the morning, you have to have something to stop that high. Because that got me into trouble. Because on the high, man, I was blowing money and, man, yeah, I get all this money and credit cards. What the hell is going to have a good time? So, look at Mike Tyson. He comes out of prison and goes out and blows $30 million. He wraps a luxury car around a tree. You tell me he's not manic? Come on, give me a break. That stuff happens. It can happen to anybody. His wife on that show with Barbara Walters was calling him that, and he held his composure, but you could bet he was pissed off because back at that time in that era, you don't bring up stuff like that. So it's a different story, but still people suffer unnecessarily. That's what gets at me. So much can be done if this government would make healthcare the number one priority, and then the best way to take it, because that's what Clinton did, the last person to balance the budget, he took it out of the military, because that's where over 50% of the money is. And we didn't lose any wars. We were fine. We could still blow up the world. All these, macho freaks out there. We can still blow up the world. You can cut that military budget by 25% easily and not put a dent in anything that we're doing. Matter of fact, I worked a computer contract for an aerospace firm dealing with the military. It was in the state of Washington. Okay. I quit the job because I was losing my computer skills. I was getting paid in the 80s, $100 an hour. That's how wasteful government military spending is. They were paying me $100 an hour. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't even needed on that project. So after about, months, I don't think it was 4 or 5 months, I said, boss, look, I got to quit. I'm losing my skills. He said, Yanni, you're making $100 an hour. I said, money's not the problem. The problem is I'm not practicing my skills. After this contract ends and I get to get another one, I'm not prepared to answer these technical questions because I'm not in it. I'm not doing the work. So I quit. I quit $100 an hour job. And then again, show me again how military government is. They didn't need to allocate that money in that fund. Put that towards the mental health. And that's what Clinton did to balance the budget. He took it out of the military, which was a smart move because he knows that's where all the waste is. So anyway, this country is great enough, and we have enough great people in this country that this problem can be figured out. It's just me, is it gonna be figured out? They have the means, but do they have the collective will to enforce those means? That's the issue.
Until the people make it a bigger priority and they actually make it realize that mental health is something that's needed more than the fear mongering of actually needing to go to war. Until we actually make it something that needs to be seen and heard, we're going to be continuously losing 22 veterans a day to suicide. We're going to continuously losing a lot. The highest rates per capita is Native American males or Inuit males, and overall numbers is white males. And they have the highest rates of suicide. And if we want to make this country better, we do need to actually make it a talking point. We need to push it up to people that can do these changes. Money is not going to always fix everything. And I'm not saying that money doesn't help it. Money does help it. But the way that we can go about it is actually having this type of dialogue and also even having this type of dialogue in education. Like right now, what I've been noticing in the field that I work in is I've been hearing about kids completing suicide and then that actually causing a chain reaction. My brain is like, why is that happening? Well, we're losing purpose, we're losing connection, we're losing identity. You brought up Europe before. They said that the bigger the square foot of the home is, the lonelier the person is. They say that we are trading square feet in the house for actually connection and communication with people. So this is like an issue that we need to actually start addressing and make it a much healthier place.
Oh, I agree 100% on that too, because I've been a high school teacher for 25 years now. And I remember that I'm at the high school I work at currently, two youngsters committed suicide, and they were both Native Americans. And then, I worked with a guy who was high up in the Native American government chain, and he was doing a computer contracts. He was making money selling computer stuff on the reservations, and the money was just being wasted. And you'd go on these reservations, and they're like ghettos. And where's this money going? They had all these millions from the casinos, and then you look on the reservation, how these people are living. It's pathetic. And so it's like any other fashion in society. You'll have some that will hoard that money. It's greed. It's the same seven grievous sins, for regardless of color, race, creed, that happens to us. But we need the gracious benefits of those other seven to counter those sins. So that's where the conflict lies, because greed is a powerful force in government, and people want their way, and a lot of times they get their way if they're in the majority at that time. But I agree with you. They have, the first place they have to start is more conversation, and how they get that to turn into law and turn into funding, and that's the big issue. But again, like you brought up a good point with your friend, do you start from the top down or the bottom up, or in the middle? I think that decision has to be made first. How are you going to attack it?
So I look at it as the
Then,
birdshot approach. All you need is one or two BBs to drop a bird. And if you actually are going only from the top down, you're going to miss everybody on one side. Or not everybody, but you're going to miss quite a bit. If you go from the bottom up, you're going to be missing a lot of people on the top. If you're willing to actually hit people from multitude of different angles, we will be able to help people out a lot more. And if we can start getting this type of conversation going, it will help out. You talked about the ghettos of the reservations. Like, there are quite a bit of food deserts out there. And I was doing some veteran outreach over there, and that's one of the things I noticed was the food. When you have the right amount of food, you're going to have an issue. And I know this is something that you brought up while we were having this conversation before we went on the recording. Tell me about the regimen, about what you do with your food and your sleep to actually help you out and keep you stable.
when I came down with manic depression, the first symptoms that happened to me was lack of sleep and improper eating. And that's why that girl told me, make sure you get the right rest and the right food. That resonated big time with me, because I remembered how I slept. And that's why I make that a priority. I'm going to eat and I'm going to rest. If I have to miss work, screw it. I'm missing work that day if I need to get my rest in, because I'm not going to let myself slip into manic uh, episodes, because a lack of sleep can do that to you. That's why when they torture people, that's what they do. They want sleep deprivation, because how it affects the mind.
Hmm.
They did that to those Al Qaeda people during the 9/11 stuff. Before, during Obama's time, they found Osama bin Laden and killed him. I've seen a documentary on that, and one of the techniques they used was sleep deprivation to get these people to talk. And so that's why, for me, that's high up on my list. Eat right, sleep right, and whatever it takes. And I also listen to my body as part of that. I'm not concerned about 8 hours or whatever. I rest. My body takes me to rest. There's days I came home at 5 o'clock and went to sleep, or went to sleep at 5 o'clock, woke up at 2. I didn't try to fight back sleep to 5 because I get up at 5 to go to work. I'm up. My body's rested. So, you listen to your body, and that's what she meant. And I said, I'm going to eat right. So for me, I need to avoid sugar because a lot of times sugar will lend itself into a manic high because it gives you that false energy, you know. So for me, I also, because I'm pre-diabetic, but back then I wasn't, and so I always realized how sugar makes me take off, and I don't want to be high like that. So I always watch what I eat and make sure I get rest because that's the first things that go when you become mentally ill is you're not getting rest right, you're not eating right.
Yeah, that is definitely an issue right there. And I wanted to, like I was talking to you before, I said we are going to talk for about an hour. So we got about 10 more minutes. And I really do, I'm enjoying this conversation. And I wanted to ask you, what is a message that you want people to hear from you about mental illness or mental health issues or even major depressive?
Well, remember you can beat it. You can beat this thing. It's been defeated by many. And if you're suffering from it, you could defeat it too. So right away, like anything else, never give up. Never give up. That sun will rise from the east and set in the west. Nothing's going to change that. And you could ride this out. You can find a way. That's the main thing is you have to find a method that works for you. That's why I wrote my book, Living with Manic Depression. Okay, so find a way that works for you. For me, I have my 6-point method that works for me and has worked for some others that have used it. So for me, that method works for me. Everybody's different because mental illness hits people differently. My way may work for me, may not work for you or somebody else. It may work for that other guy over there. So same thing with methods that you use may work for you, may not work for me. But the key is never give up, never succumb to this because it can be whipped, it can be controlled. And then you have to find the hard part is you have to find a method that works for you.
Well, and I liked how you talked about the sleep, focusing on yourself, being true to yourself, not trying to put the work in front of you, so that you're actually making sure that you are mentally sound so that you're not shooting yourself metaphorically in the foot and then reverting back to being stuck. And
Right.
how long did it take you to write that book?
I just wrote this. I just wrote the book last year. To write the book itself only took a couple of months because I had all the memories. I knew what happened and I outlined it. I've been a screenwriter for a long time. I've written 64 movie scripts. Nothing big, but I've sold 19 of them. I work for an LA studio. So I know how to organize a writing, a beginning, middle, and end. And so the first thing I did was organize it. How do I want this book to go? Then once I had the outline, writing the chapters was easy. And it's not that long. It's not even a novel. It's a novelette. It's only 10,000 words. So to get the thoughts together and organize it took the greatest amount of time. The actual writing wasn't that long. But I'd say all in all, I think encompassing was like 2 months.
I appreciate it because I'm actually looking at writing a book myself, and it's more of some of the stuck points that I've seen and what are some of the areas that we can help improve people's health and life. And it's I really do appreciate you coming on. And Yanni, I'm sorry, like I said, I know you reached out to me back in August 15th. I'm looking at it, and I got this list from a person, and between full-time school and full-time work and then doing this, I have like just been trying to keep my eyes open. So, Yanni, I do appreciate it. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on, I have a website, ioannisskiotis.com, my name. They can contact me there. I'm on the major social media like Facebook, Instagram. Uh, so I can also be reached there as well. Those are the major ones I use. I have a TikTok, but I don't really know how to use it. So, and and I have a YouTube channel that's got like 5 subscribers, so I don't use that much. But the main source to contact me, my book's available on Amazon, and also it's available through my website, ioannisskiotis.com. And the social media, the main ones are Instagram and Facebook. And I appreciate you having me on your show. I'm sure that you get inundated with a lot of requests from people. And I've been down that path you were on. I was working full time, going to school full time, and that's no party, I tell you that.
So when I looked at this list, I had when I finally looked at it, I had 45 people on here, and that were reaching out to be on here, and then beyond beyond this, I've talked to other people from LinkedIn to YouTube to people reaching out to me, and it's honestly been a pleasure and it's been a blessing to have the ability for people to believe in me. And it's an area, this is something I'm extremely passionate about. I just want to help people out wherever I can. But Mrs. Skiotis, did I say it right again?
Skiotis, you're right. And oh man, wait, say one thing too. A goal of mine is I want to get speaking engagements because that's a great way to get the word out. Today's really a blessing, but I'd like to be able to also speak at events, mental health events and stuff like that, to add a different angle to it. I mean, I know there's doctors and whatever on there, mental health professionals. I'm not a licensed professional. I'm an experienced life surviving professional in that sense. So that's another one of my goals, is to get out there and be able to get on stages and speak, to deliver the story to others. And I encourage you, William, wholeheartedly to write your book, because you've experienced some pretty traumatic dealings with mental health. And you've also had a lot of interactions with those people who have, like myself and others, that you could pull from in your show and on the episodes you've had. So I think you will be able to compose a highly dynamic book. And God bless you and good luck to you. And I hope you write that book.
Well, last thing I'll tell you, Mr. Ioannis, I had the pleasure of speaking for NAMI Montana about several months back, and I don't have a degree. And they allowed me to be able to talk. If anything, I did something very unorthodox. I had 7 slides for an hour-long talk. So if you've ever been to a lot of these formal ones, they have slides and full of data, and slides after slides. I went with 7 slides, and the whole thing, there was only 3 words on it. It said, "I am Will." And it was a great conversation. It was actually, and you don't need to have the degree to be able to start making a difference. So start making a difference by getting out there, talking, spreading the word, and sharing your story. And you might say you only have 5 subscribers, but at the same time, just making yourself be known, putting out the information, editing it, and getting the word out, those 5 people might be able to splinter out and tell other people. So I
Yeah,
think,
that happens. Because I'm also on Substack. I forgot to mention that, but I'm also on Substack, and I'm getting more followers on that. So Substack has been pretty good to me as well.
well, I appreciate your time, Ione.
Same. I appreciate yours, and thanks for the opportunity. I hope we run into each other again.